Hey guys, welcome back. Apparently, even though I've had all 3 channels active for the past 4 years, people still have no idea that I have 3 channels, and it's not even a league only thing. People on Vars 1 have no idea there's a Vars 2 and 3 and vice versa. People on Vars 2 don't know there's a Vars 1 or 3, and people on Vars 3 don't know there's a Vars 1 and 2. But anyways, that's besides the point. Overall in Vars 3 I make Smash Ultimate content, and one of my favorite video series has been Broken Moves No One Complains About, in which, as the name implies, I talked about moves that are quite powerful and effective, but rarely if ever do they get brought up in discussions on what would be considered like the best move of that category. I thought about it for a moment and realized that such a video topic would be great to talk about in League. People have a general understanding of what abilities are broken to all hell: Soul Unbound, Precision Protocol, Haymaker, Death Realm, Living Shadow, and so on. Likewise, we know what the worst abilities in the game are: Fury of the Dragonborn, Infernal Chains, Move Quick, Golden Aegis Pre-Buff, to name a few. In between the best and the worst are no shortage of abilities that are incredibly effective, if not borderline outrageous, but again, they practically never get brought up in contention for a hypothetical top 10 or even top 20 of each ability type. So today I wanted to make a video talking about a handful of broken abilities that deserve a lot more attention than they currently get. Kicking things off, the first champion I want to give highlights to is actually my main, Pantheon. Honestly, an argument can be made for any one of his abilities to be featured because they're frankly very strong in their own right, but the most critical one would have to be his E, Aegis Assault. Public opinion towards this ability often points to the 1.5 seconds of damage immunity from all sources in the direction he's braced against, and make no mistake, such a defensive tool is single-handedly the reason why Pantheon wins a number of matchups, notably in top lane. However, I want to point more towards the other parts of his E, because in my humble opinion, that's actually where the real threat of the ability can be found. While channeling during this time, Pantheon rapidly damages all enemies in the line of fire, totaling up to his AD in physical damage. Afterwards, he blasts all enemies in a cone for a fairly solid amount. Now when I say solid amount, I'm not exaggerating. While you don't max a second anymore like you used to back in the day, Aegis Assault's damage can far exceed the power of a base combat spear. In fact, if you get hit by the damage over time and the bash, that's almost the equivalent of taking an empowered Q to the face, but in a much wider area. Towards the mid to late game, Pantheon's Shield Bash can deal upwards of 600 damage in a massive radius, making it a very strong damaging ability. Secondarily, since Pantheon often runs Black Cleaver, he can instantly max out stacks on any champion standing within range of the channel portion of the attack. How it works is that Pantheon dishes out his attack damage in many small hits. I believe in total it comes out to be 12 instances of physical damage. Essentially, within half a second, he can apply full Black Cleaver stacks on all targets in range of the attack, and when factoring in his innate armor penetration, Aegis Assault can do so much damage in teamfights, and that's not even factoring the Mortal Will bonus effectively giving him a Jax ultimate and a massive tempo boost after. Obviously, people get discouraged to attack Pantheon when he is active on account of him blocking all damage dealt, but they tend to underestimate the sheer offensive capability of his E. It's actually for that reason I don't think Pantheon falls off as hard as everyone remembers him to. This ability alone makes him a force in teamfights. Moving on though, next ability I want to go over is Malzahar's Q, Call of the Void. Silences, no pun intended, are a fairly quiet form of crowd control for how dangerous they really are, and there's a reason they don't get distributed to that many champions anymore. Blocking opponents out of using any abilities, including flash or even item actives, may very well functionally be the same as stunning them. Malzahar's Q is one such example of an ability that deserves more respect because it can silence. Not unlike Pantheon, people tend to fixate on every other part of his kit. I don't blame them, he's notoriously scary for a lot of other reasons, not the least of which being to avoid getting ulted, or to a lesser extent making sure the space aids don't spread to you in lane. But the real ability I think people need to watch out for is Q. While an inconspicuous ability at first glance, that actually is what makes it so scary. Call of the Void has a very subtle animation, and given that silences don't actively stop you from moving, people tend to not notice the ability hitting them, especially in the chaos of a teamfight, but if and when it does, you're looking at an AoE 2-second silence on a 6-second cooldown that can be casted from a rather far distance. It's even more traumatic if you're infected by space aids because it refreshes the duration of it, causing it to take a lot more damage than you originally bargained for. Malzahar's ability to disrupt enemy combos and momentum in teamfights and skirmishes make him very annoying to deal with, not only because of his ultimate. Speaking of silences, again no pun intended, Cho'Gath's another one of those champions with a lot of individually powerful abilities, and while most return to his Q for being what is essentially a remote-controlled Malphite ultimate on a 6-second cooldown both in damage and knockup potential, or his ultimate for being a one-time guaranteed full-stack Darius ult, Feral Scream might very well be the most deadly among all of them. I would even go so far as to call it arguably the best silence in the game. It's an AoE blast of magic damage in a very wide cone that does 280 base plus 70% AP in damage, already making it extremely powerful. And it can silence all enemies by up to 2 seconds or 1.6 at base. Whether you're playing tank or AP Cho'Gath, Feral Scream is incredible. It also makes it easy to set up into any one of his attacks. After all, you can't dash or flash out a rupture of your silence, nor can you mount any meaningful defense against a feast. Despite being a melee champion, Feral Scream extends far enough to tag even ranged opponents, and given backline champs have very poor innate durability, they won't be able to face tank his Q and ultimate burst damage. Reminder, you can't use item actives either, so mages can't use Sonya's to stall for time. Next ability will be another W ability, and it will be Orianna's W, Command Dissonance. Prevailing Wisdom's aware of the high damage output of her W. It is her main DPS and wave clear tool after all, but there are two reasons why I think it deserves more attention. First and foremost, how easily Orianna can get that damage off. Despite being a burst mage, not artillery, Orianna's poke damage is quite hard for most champions to deal with. She can remotely position her ball up to 825 units away from her and keep the ball in place, allowing her to immediately follow up with a W to blast you for a huge amount of AoE damage. Unlike other poke tools, you can't really hide behind anything to avoid it, nor can you really sidestep around it either, as she can attack you from basically any angle. Second, Command Dissonance applies a 3-second field in the area it was just in that grants a movement speed increase to your party and a commensurate decrease to opponents, enabling it to assist in both chasing and escaping, as she can speed up your team to get closer to or farther away from the opposing team, while simultaneously cutting off their escape or giving you more breathing room to run away. It's a phenomenal zoning, harass, and poke tool all in one. Having an instant cast time further lends itself to Orianna's ability to hit and run. Okay, so far the ones I talked about were mainly touted for their utility components in addition to their damage, but for this one, I wanted to talk about it mainly because of how overtuned its damage is. And yet despite that, it keeps getting stronger. Poppy's one of the more tactical tanks in the game, which by the way kinda fitting that arguably the most famous Poppy one-trick is named Tactician. Anyways, her abilities have many situational applications that can make her either really strong or really bad. Hammer Shock is no different. By itself, it's not the most impactful ability in the game. It's got fairly short range and coverage, and the attack has a 1-second delay between explosions, with the slow often not being strong enough to stop you from simply walking out of it. But if you're able to land both parts of the ability, you're looking at by far one of the strongest individual damaging tools in the game. Altogether, Hammer Shock can deal 260 base plus 200% of her bonus AD, one of the highest ratios on a basic ability in the entire game, and it also deals 18% max health damage. Keep in mind, we're talking about a Q that at max rank has a cooldown of 4 seconds, an insanely low cooldown for how much damage it can do. Mind you, the challenge is actually landing both parts of her Q, and despite having 3 lockdown tools in her kit, W, E, and Ultimate, other champions might have an easier time landing her Q than Poppy. But for everyone wondering why Poppy can destroy your entire health bar while simultaneously being invincible, most of it is because of her Q. Throughout the past decade, Hammer Shot has been getting continuously buffed over and over. When she first got reworked, her Q used to do only 320 plus 130% bonus AD and 12% max health. Despite the base damage getting nerfed, the max health and AD ratios have been climbing over the years, resulting in her Q being way stronger than when she first came out. If she had a way to guarantee her Q every single time by, say, having a Pantheon W or something, people would complain about her a lot more. This one might be a bit of a hot take, but hear me out. For all the guys capable of doing, the community likes to joke about how he effectively has no passive. Not in the literal sense, he obviously does have a passive, but it's more that said passive can feel underwhelming more often than not. I disagree. I think Shurima's Legacy, especially within the context of Azir's kit, is a very powerful ability. It's basically a temporary turret he can spawn that isn't as durable but actually deals more damage than a regular tower. To add on to that, Azir can summon one even on enemy tower spots. Why this is so powerful is because, for as long as the Sun Disk is active, he and by extension his team essentially become impossible to push against if he's using it to defend against a siege, and impossible to contest during a siege of his own. Towers have been adjusted over the years to deal increasingly more damage as a result of the PTSD from champions tanking 25 tower shots in a row. You'll notice after 3 or 4 shots, tower bolts become incredibly huge and chunk even a bruiser for half their HP. Azir's tower can deal even more damage. I understand that if you're fighting in the jungle like at the Dragon or Baron Pit, then yes, applicably speaking Azir has no passive, but my god, it's difficult to navigate a fight if he's using it in lane. Trying to push against Azir with his entire team standing guard around the tower turns the game into a battle of attrition, and god forbid you're being sieged on by Azir with a Baron buff. It's a lose-lose situation for you most of the time. Keep in mind the risk of tower diving or challenging Azir too, as Emperor's Divide can force your team into tower range and prevent you from escaping out of it. Under normal circumstances, if you're defending against a siege, your hope of victory is to pray that someone will overextend and then you can run them down. But if Azir has the tower on deck, you can't even move forward or else you risk getting cut off. Likewise, if you're trying to siege, Azir can stall your Baron or Elder buff by giving his team a free tower to work with. Quite a strong ability. 2 more to go, let's talk about Rumble Z, Electro Harpoon. Rumble's been secretly getting a lot of buffs and whatnot over the years to be way more sufficient at tank busting. In addition to his Q doing max health damage now, Electro Harpoon was buffed a lot. Prior to 11.8, it was nothing more than just a poke tool that slowed enemies, an annoying poke tool and one that could be used to either chase down enemies or run away from them. But after getting buffed in 11.8, it now had the ability to shred enemy magic resist by a percentage. If you can tag both empowered E's one after another, Electro Harpoon can shred the target's magic resist by up to 54%, which when paired with Zork Shoes and any summons a magic pen effectively allowed Rumble to deal true damage on his Q and ultimate against most enemies. Typically, tank busting abilities only go up to like 30% or so in most, with an extreme few being able to shred past that on their own. Rumble, however, can tear through his target's MR extremely quickly by tagging 2 empowered E's on a single enemy, and if you buy Bloodletter's Curse, the exact number is escaping me at the moment, but Rumble can shred up to 75% of the target's magic resist in one go. Even without that, it's just a good poke tool, giving him the ability to last it from a distance and harass enemies both in and out of lane. No small amount of damage either, landing 2 empowered harpoons can do 465 plus 150% AP in damage. Keep in mind the second one will always do more damage courtesy of the MR shred. Oh, and by the way, the slow can stack too. If you get hit by 2 harpoons, you're not gonna move anywhere, forcing you to endure the full strength of his Q. It bears repeating that Rumble's a manaless champion, making for quite a tough lane bully to deal with. Final ability will be Tryndamere's W, Mocking Shout. Similarly to Malzahar and Cho'Gath, people pay more attention to his other abilities, rightfully so, for what they offer toward his win condition. Q gives him bonus AD and healing, passive gives up to 50% crit chance, ultimate is, well, you know. And E's a long dash and wave clear, but Mocking Shout needs more attention. For one, if the opponent's facing away from Tryndamere, it's a 30 to 60% slow for 4 seconds, one of the longer and more severe slows in the game. However, what I think most people fail to account for is that Mocking Shout still has an effect even if you're facing him. He lowers your AD for that amount of time as well. 20 at base, that climbs all the way up to 80 at rank 5. Hypothetically, if the enemy team has 3 AD champs, Mocking Shout will lower all 3 of their attack damages by 80%, which if you factor gold efficiency results in over 8,000 gold in stat value lost against the enemy team. 80 attack damage is more than a fully completed item. In terms of absolute value, Tryndamere can potentially shred up to 400 AD if he tags all 5 members of the enemy team. That's 14,000 gold worth of stats nullified with a single press of a W. Fighting Tryndamere while down 80 attack damage can be quite difficult since it takes that much more time for you to get into low HP to force him to use Undying Rage. Dueling Tryndamere is even harder. The vast majority of 1v1 champs in the game are physical damage dealers. Losing 80 AD severely undermines the burst strength of his Zed, the DPS of an Irelia, not to mention the strength of AD carries, who get doubly nerfed because again, if you have the base damage of an attack, you also lower the crit damage of the attack. Tryndamere is seldom known for his party utility, but I'd be willing to bet many people forget about the AD loss on his W. Although to be fair, he has to be level 18 for the full AD, but even so. Anyways, those are 8 abilities among many others that I believe are severely underrated in this game. Granted, there are plenty of abilities that are significantly stronger than the ones I went over, but I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the less appreciated ones. Let me know in the comments down below what are some other underrated abilities in the game, and for the time being, if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you left a like and subscribed. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other ability discussions if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.